Hello, and welcome to Film Slam Streaming's post-film conversation for Corvine. My name is Eric Siler, and I'm an instructor of film, media arts, and communications, as well as moderator for this conversation. We're very pleased to be joined by the director of Corvine, Sean McCarron. Sean is joining us from Vancouver, British Columbia. Hello, Sean, and welcome.
Hello, Eric. Nice to meet you, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you as well, and we are so glad that you shared this film with us. And the Corvine, let's just start off with the meaning of that Corvine. What does Corvine mean?
Yes, Corvine means simply crow-like. And yeah, so anything that is crow-like, especially in color, they say, is known to be Corvine.
I see, and I understand you have an interesting story as to how you developed this film based on that word, Corvine.
Yes, my wife, when we first got together, she was very good at crossword puzzles, and I struggled to keep up. I never really did them, but I, wanted to be a part of her world, so we were starting to do crosswords together, and it was the first clue that I could actually get that stumped her, and it was a 7-letter word for crow-like, and of course the answer was Corvine. So that got me sort of thinking about crows, and it got me thinking to my father, who when we were young would mimic crows out in the yard, and he would just call to them, and the neighborhood crows would come in and they would start responding to him, and we just thought this was really funny. So I was telling my wife this story, and it just kind of sparked this little character. I thought this would be a great little story of a boy who just spoke like a crow. And when years later I had the storyboard and everything, I actually had my dad do the voice. So I got him in a sound recording to record him, and the boy in the film is actually my dad doing that call.
Very interesting. So, did your dad ever teach you how to mimic crow sounds?
He did as best as he could, but it's a very back of the throat thing, and I couldn't and can't do it. It's yeah, but his call is incredible. Yeah.
I bet. So, was this film more of a tribute to your father or more of a story about crows and human interaction?
Yeah, it was. I mean, the initial idea came from my dad, but then, I mean, I put a lot of my own kind of feelings and everything into it. So it kind of, while, yeah, pays homage to my dad, a lot of it is my own kind of story and beliefs as well. Specifically, like the feelings of being an outsider and struggling with confidence. Those are things that I kind of, especially as a kid, kind of dealt with a lot. And even now, like, I think everyone has confidence issues from time to time and feeling like a bit of an outsider in situations. So that's kind of very close to me and dear to my heart. So I just kind of wanted to tell a story involving those ideas and kind of end up in a joyful kind of place at the end, with an emphasis on the arts as well, because I feel like that's kind of what helped me through everything growing up, is just drawing and the love of arts. So the ballet ending wasn't specifically true to me. I'm not a dancer. I can't do, I can't even do yoga. Like my flexibility is terrible. But the idea of arts and communicating and learning to use your voice in a confident way that is unique to you is something that I think is very important, and the message that I kind of wanted to get across in the end.
And that you did. But to get to the end, there was a process. Can you take us through the production process of this film? Once you conceived the idea, how long did it take for you to actually get this film completed?
It was a long process. It was 8 years in total. I started, see, it was just purely a passion picture for me and something that I did kind of around my full-time job in the industry. I was working for Cartoon Saloon in Ireland at the time. So in the evenings and in the mornings, kind of before work, I would just start storyboarding and getting little ideas done as much as I could. And it took sort of, the 7 years on and off to kind of get to a point where I ended up having a storyboard and I was looking for funding and opportunities to get it done. And eventually I got funding from the Canada Council for the Arts, and that allowed me to hire artists to kind of finish it. So by the first 7 years, it was me doing storyboards, and then I did the rough animation all by myself. And that's when I got the funding and I could do cleanup animation with a small team of 3 people. And I hired a composer who then went on to like write a beautiful score and get an orchestra involved. So we had a full orchestra, and it just kind of, that last year from when I got the funding was me finishing up the film with a small team.
So tell us a little bit about independent animation filmmaking. The big budget studios, they could spend 7 years on a project and they have an end date in mind because they had the budget and the staff to do this. With you spending 7 years on this, did you have a 7-year deadline, or did you know eventually it was going to be completed at some point once you had all your resources?
Yeah, it was just something I kind of just wanted to keep working away at. So there was never an end date. There was never like, okay, this is going to happen now and this and this. It was just kind of the way I kind of approached it was, I'm going to do 3 drawings today. That was kind of my goal. So when I was doing storyboarding, for instance, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do 3 panels today. And that was the small goal that you do. Some days you do more, but it was just a matter of the persistence of doing it. And that kind of got you through. And I never worried about whether it was going to get done or not. And so there was a point where I got the storyboard done, and I was moving from Ireland, I was coming back to Canada. And so I kind of didn't do a whole lot then, and it kind of sat on the shelf for a few months. And then eventually I came back to it and was able to do some more like revisions and that kind of thing, and look for funding. And it was, that's kind of how it went.
Now, the story itself, over 7 years, it probably took on many different versions. Tell us about some of the prior versions and compare that to the overall end version of this film.
Yeah, there's my process for the film, actually, I'm just very comfortable in image making and drawing. So I kind of wrote the story in thumbnail version, and there's never a proper script of this. So that has its advantages. So it allowed me to feel comfortable and just push on and make the film. But it did mean you're just drawing a lot, and you're thinking and just kind of drawing and keep going. So my first version of the film was, I think, 15 minutes. And the whole sort of beginning didn't really work so well. I wanted to feel kind of start because prose can be kind of scary. I thought maybe it would be like a horror kind of film, and this chase and this dark kind of feeling. And then the little boy would jump out and he'd call the crow, and it would just be a complete shift change. And I thought that was really funny, but then there were problems with who does he belong to? Where is he coming from? Who are these people? Are they neighbors? Are they parents? And it just got confusing. So I thought that was a fun idea, but it had to change and just start with him at home and establish his home life, and then traveling to the new location, the neighbors. So there's lots of little things like that. And there's lots of little areas where you kind of elaborate and you think, oh, this would be a great little idea. and it just went on too long. So for example, I had a whole section, a whole other day in school. The first day he kind of makes a ruckus and he's trying to escape and jump out the window, and the teacher's pulling him back in, and there's a lot of like a lot more fun and stuff, and it was a great little sequence, but it just made it too long, and it just made sense to condense it. So yeah, you're just looking for little ideas that you're putting in, but ultimately you do have to start cutting back, and I think around 10 minutes for the short film felt good for this one. And so you're always trying to pull back and cut stuff. So it's hard sometimes, but in the end, it's a better film for it.
Indeed, it is a better film by going through the revisions and re-storyboarding and so forth. Now, speaking of the ending of the film, the whole ballet ending, why did you go in the direction of that? Can you just give us a little bit of insight into that?
Sure. I was writing the story and kind of, the little boy is dancing around my head and just being a crow-like, and it was nice to have that crow. Like, the crows have a duality of they're very intelligent, they're very smart, they're very fluid in the air, they're very graceful, but they have a horrible voice, so they can be very grating. And when I was looking for an ending, you have this little character whose voice could be annoying, so you could believe that he might get bullied or be ostracized for being a little different. But then he's also got these crow-like movements that are very graceful. And at the time I was thinking about this story, I went to the ballet for the first time in my life, and I experienced Swan Lake, and it just floored me, the beauty of the whole production, the music, telling a story without dialogue. And I just thought about all the artists behind the production and how they all come together to make this beautiful thing. And I thought, this is a perfect way to end my film. This is where he goes, because for me growing up, like, I drew a lot. The arts were very important. I love film. I love all kinds of arts. I go to theater and I see a lot of that, but the ballet was that first experience, and that kind of just made me really think how much I love the arts. And then I just folded that into the end, and it really went well with his graceful movements and everything. And it just, once you have an idea that kind of works and clicks, it's just like, of course, that's it. And you're struggling for a while trying to figure out where it's going to go, but when it's there, you know it. And that's where it all came for me.
Exactly, because watching this film, you're wondering, okay, there's a strong connection there between the boy and the crows, and you're thinking a lot of animation, who's going to save who? Are the crows going to save the boys? The boy going to save the crows? And where's the rescue coming in? And the whole ballet aspect was like the perfect rescue, which incorporates, his personality, his love for crows and so forth. And you can actually hear the crows singing, cheering on the boy. I didn't hear that, but in my mind, I was listening to that as well, too. Let's talk a little bit about the animation process. Did you do the animation work yourself in terms of composing music? I know you recorded your father growing and so forth. Give us a little bit more insight about the whole technical aspect of the production.
Sure. So the animation was, well, yeah, you all know all about the animation process. So the rough animation was all done by me. I needed to get that process far enough along for I wasn't going to get a lot of money from funding, so I needed to get the film in a good shape. So and I'm an animator mostly. I'm an animator and a storyboard artist in my, let's say, real world, in the commercial aspect of things. So I was very comfortable with that. So that part of things was very easy for me. So again, it's just time. So I would, I made the storyboard and then I broke it into its shots and I started rough animation and I did the whole 10.5 minutes. And then the funding came in and I hired 3 artists, cleanup artists. They're also animators, but the rough animation was done. So I had those 3 artists then help me with cleanup. So I cleaned up half the film and each of the 3 took about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes each. And we kind of went through the film that way. I had this film broken into 5 sequences. The first is kind of the opening. The second is school. I can't remember where the third is. And yeah, there's definite things. So I just gave sequences to the 3 artists and they just cleaned up a whole chunk of scenes. And then I would kind of be there to guide them and give revisions and help with the little character design elements that they were missing from here and there. So that's kind of how we tackled the animation, and then they helped with the color as well. So sorry, I also hired 3 compositors then came on as well to finish the film, compositing all the different things. So when cleanup was done, I moved on to backgrounds. I did all the backgrounds just out of, I had to rely on myself. There wasn't a lot of money to do things. So the cheapest person in the room is always yourself when you have funding. You have to pay proper fees for everyone. So, you can just take a small stipend for living. You don't have to pay yourself like real world wages, which is nice. So you can get through done. So I did the backgrounds and the compositors came on to put it all together in the end.
Great, wonderful team effort in making this film. What has the reception been like from the screening of this film? First, to start off with your father's response to the film, and tell me about other people as well too.
It was so great. It premiered in Calgary International Film Festival. My parents are on the East Coast. Calgary's closer to the West. So my parents flew all the way over from Nova Scotia to Calgary to be at the premiere. And we all sat in the theater and watched it together. And my dad just loved it. It was really nice to see. And yeah, he was just so proud of me, which was really touching. And yeah, it was a wonderful family thing. I had cousins and my brother came down, so everyone went there and they all loved it, which is great. And then beyond that, the audience there and subsequent film festivals, it's all been really, really positive. People are really nice. They want to chat about it. It's been amazing seeing different aspects of people and what they see in the film or what they relate to. Neurodiverse and people on the autism spectrum, for example, are saying, was that on purpose that, he only speaks like a crow, and could he be autistic? And I'm just like, oh, that's a wonderful question, and it's not something that I did intentionally, but people are seeing that, and I think that's wonderful. And then, I try not to say yes or no to things. It's just like, if that's what you see, then that's what you bring, and that's fine. He doesn't need to be defined for me to be one thing or the other. It's what you bring to the film, and that meaning, I think, is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, if films have that type of power to impact all types of people, what can we expect to see from you next? What are you working on now?
Well, I am currently writing a new short film. And it's early days, but it's shaping up nicely. It's going to be a kind of a tonal shift. I am going to try something a little darker. So going back to my first idea of having a fun little chase or something. So it's kind of a ghost story. It's kind of based on the Slavic myth of the Rizalka, which are water spirits that kind of drag people to their deaths in lakes. So it's kind of exciting and a big tonal shift for me. So I'm working on that, and I am going to go back to the commercial animation for a little bit. I'm going to do some storyboarding on a feature film that is starting up here in Vancouver, and I can't say too much about it, but yeah, I'm going to start next week actually, and yeah, just get stuck into that for a few months, and that's going to be a nice change as well, to get back into having something solid day to day, where right now I'm kind of just yeah, a little scattered with my thoughts.
That is fine. I wish you all the best with your future work. Sean McCarron, director of Corvine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me, Eric. I really appreciate it.
And thank you to our audience for joining us for this important and invigorating conversation. For more information about upcoming film festivals, please visit us at clevelandfilm.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.